It is said that beneath the endless whiteness of the Antarctic plain, where no tree grows, where the horizon folds into itself, the earth remembers something vast. The snow drifts like time itself, slow and unending, a soft burial shroud for forgotten empires. The wind sings there, a single unbroken note that has traveled through centuries, echoing across frozen stone. And when that wind falls still, when even breath seems to freeze in the air, it is then, they say, that one can hear the whispers. Not voices in the ordinary sense, but a trembling beneath the silence, as though the ice itself were dreaming. Beneath miles of frozen sleep, a city waits, not built by hands as we know them, nor shaped by the hunger of empire. It was formed, they believe, when men and stars still spoke to one another. The black stones beneath the glaciers are too precise, too heavy, too alive with symmetry to be chance. Some say they pulse faintly at night, beating like a heart no longer bound to time. In the last century, explorers crossed that desolate sea of white with machines, notebooks, and fragile courage. They wrote of warmth rising from the ground where there should have been none, of compasses spinning, of the strange hum that filled the air when they camped upon certain ridges. One, before vanishing into a storm, described a faint light far below the ice. Not reflection, but radiance, as though something beneath were still awake. His journal ended there, the ink bleeding into frost. The last words read, "It watches." The tale drifts onward like snow on the wind. Some scholars dismiss it as legend, a mirage of human longing projected onto the blankness of the poles. Yet there are others, quiet, patient voices, who believe the ice does not hide the past. It preserves it. That beneath those frozen cathedrals, carved in black stone and silence, lies the memory of a world that learned too much and chose to sleep. Imagine it. Long corridors of obsidian and glass, cold light spilling from ceilings that do not end. Statues rise in perfect alignment, each gaze cast toward the heavens, as if awaiting a constellation that no longer exists. Along the walls, the faint impression of symbols can still be traced, their meanings long dissolved into silence. No living tongue can speak them now, yet when one stands within that imagined hall, a feeling stirs, not fear, but reverence. The kind of reverence that belongs to things too ancient to understand. And perhaps that is why the ice keeps its secrets. It knows what happens when light meets knowledge unguarded. It has seen the birth and the undoing of civilizations, the brief flare of understanding followed by the long hush that follows. Tonight, as the snow drifts in gentle spirals and the stars lie buried behind the clouds, the land remains still. No footsteps disturb it. No flame defies its cold. Somewhere beneath, a great silence breathes. Not dead, only waiting. The wind sighs again across the plain, folding the earth's long memory deeper into frost. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the city beneath the ice is not sleeping, only listening, for the one voice quiet enough to hear it. The mouth of the gate stands framed by two pillars of black stone, veined with silver lines that glow faintly beneath the aurora. The snow never settles near them. The ground there hums softly, as if remembering movement. Carved across the lintel are marks no scholar has translated. A script that seems to shift each time it is seen. Some claim it is a warning. Others, an invitation. Those who linger too long begin to feel a pull, not on the body, but on the soul, as if something beyond the darkness is listening, patient and kind, but impossibly vast. It is said that the gate breathes, that once every century, when the stars take their original places and the sky folds like a curtain, the fisher exhales a single breath of air colder than silence itself. And with it comes a sound low, sustained, like a sigh drawn from the earth's own lungs. The tribes who once lived near that edge believed the gate led to the first night, the one before creation began. They spoke of a world behind this world, where thought was light and silence was the sea. To step through, they said, was to return to the beginning or to never return at all. Explorers have tried to measure its depth. Ropes lower into nothing. Instruments falter. Even light behaves strangely, curving inward as if drawn by unseen gravity. One diver of courage descended by rope, describing in his journal a slow dimming of everything. His body, his voice, even the memory of his own name. When the line was pulled back, it came up clean, uncut, but empty. His last words remain etched in pencil. The darkness is not empty. It is awake. Scholars dismiss it as story, a legend born from the loneliness of the poles. Yet those who have stood near its edge agree, the silence there is not mere absence. Feels inhabited. The air vibrates faintly, not with menace, but with awareness, like the breath between heartbeats before a word is spoken. Some believe the gate leads not to another place, but another state, the threshold between memory and forgetting, between sound and the endless hush beneath it. And so it remains untouched by time, the snow drifting around it like ash, the aurora flickering gently above, as if the sky itself keeps vigil. Perhaps it is not a gate at all, but a mirror, showing us the shape of our own silence. Perhaps the darkness only waits, endlessly patient, for those who have grown quiet enough. It is said the map was found in a room that did not wish to be opened, a narrow cell of stone beneath a monastery where the air kept the scent of old wax and winter. A single candle was lit, and in that hush the parchment was unrolled like a quiet invocation. The edges were frayed, the ink a muted brown, as if brewed from dusk itself. No borders named, no kings remembered. Only coastlines that curled like sleeping serpents, rivers that bent toward the moon, islands drawn as if in prayer. In one corner, a spiral had been inked with such patience that the page itself seemed to breathe around it. Beneath the silence, the map waited, soft as a relic that knew it had already outlived every hand that touched it, to walk into the night and become part of its breath. It is said that long before the first cities rose from dust, before even the moon knew its course, a light descended from the heavens, slow, deliberate, and sorrowful. It did not fall like fire, nor strike with violence. It drifted, graceful as a leaf in wind, and came to rest upon the edge of the southern ice. For 3 nights it burned upon the horizon, brighter than dawn, then sank gently into the sea and was gone. The people of that ancient age marked the sky with wonder, not fear. They called it the star that remembered. Centuries later, explorers found a hollow deep beneath the glacier, a cavern carved not by water or time, but by warmth. At its center lay a sphere no larger than a man's heart, half buried in blue crystal. It pulsed faintly, as though it still carried the rhythm of its long descent. The surface shimmered with unknown metal, neither gold nor silver, but something in between, as if starlight itself had hardened into form. Those who touched it said it was warm, not heat but life. Whispers tell us that the sphere was not a stone at all, but a vessel, a fragment of something greater, fallen when the sky was still young. Some believe it was a seed, carrying the memory of other worlds. Others, a message, a thought cast from a dying sun, preserved within metal and silence. When held close, it emits a low hum, so soft it feels like breath. And those who linger near it for too long begin to dream, of cities built from light, of oceans that sing, of a sky that speaks in color. The scientists who studied it could not agree. Some claimed it was an ancient meteorite, its heat trapped by pressure. Others insisted it was a relic of an advanced civilization buried beneath the poles. Yet one physicist, near the end of her days, wrote quietly in her notes, "It does not come from the stars. It is one." They sealed the chamber to preserve it, but the ice would not stay still. It grew around the sphere, folding over it like a closing hand. Within months, the path vanished. All that remains now are the stories, of light seen beneath the glaciers on moonless nights, of a faint glow pulsing through cracks in the ice when the wind falls silent. Pilots flying high above claim to see a dim shimmer below, moving slowly, rhythmically, as if something beneath is breathing in sleep. It is said that when the end of an age draws near, the star will wake once more. Not as a flame, but as remembrance, calling the world to listen again to the voice of the cosmos it has long ignored. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps it fell not in accident, but in mercy. Whispers tell us that when the light was lowered, the map changed. Not visibly, not like trickery, but as a feeling the eye could not command. Shapes leaning inward, roads that weren't roads, a path that led away from the world and into the hush behind it. Some believe the map was copied from an older memory, older than charts and kings, when sailors steered by the slow turning of the stars and the breath of the sea. Others hear in its lines the echo of a flood that came before speech, when a coastline vanished under a single night of rain and was never named again. A scholar held the parchment to his ear, as if to listen to the oceans drawn there, and swore he heard the small sound of sand moving under water, to remind the earth that it, too, was once made of starlight. And even now, beneath 1,000 tons of ancient ice, the star still dreams, warm in its long forgetting, waiting for the silence to break, and the world to remember what it once was. It is said that before the world divided itself, before the continents drifted and the seas chose their borders, the earth was not as it is now. It was a realm of breath and flame, of frost and light entwined. Ice and fire were not enemies then, but lovers. They lived together in the same sky, their dance creating the rivers, the mountains, the clouds. The ancients called it the first balance, the time when all things knew their reflection. In that age, the sky glowed amber and white, a soft horizon of endless dawn. Volcanoes rose beside glaciers. Fire bloomed within frost. The air itself shimmered with heat and chill, a breath that gave life to stone. Creatures walked in warmth yet left frozen footprints behind them. Trees grew tall from rivers of steam. And within this strange equilibrium, time moved differently, slower, more deliberate, as though each moment was being shaped by unseen hands. Whispers tell us that the first beings, neither gods nor mortals, but something between, were born from this marriage of opposites. Their hearts burned with light, yet their skin shimmered with the pallor of snow. They spoke little, for their language was motion. The flicker of flame against ice, the melting of frost into water. It was a world sustained not by conquest, but by balance, until pride entered as it always does. Some say one of the fireborn sought dominion over the cold, believing warmth to be the truer power. Others tell that the ice, weary of restraint, longed to still the restless dance of flame. And so began the slow breaking, the first betrayal. The winds grew violent, mountains cracked like bone, the harmony unraveled, and the sky split open in grief. Where fire struck, the ice melted into seas. Where ice struck back, the flame hardened into stone. In forgotten corners of the earth, the map was compared to fragments of older scrolls. A coastline in the shape of Orion's belt, a bay that matched a glyph on a temple lintel, a mountain range whose ridges traced the curve of a constellation now gone. It is said the scribe who drew it worked by moonlight, marking each point with a pin dipped in salt, as if the sea itself were being invited to speak. Where memory fades, the lines grow faint, yet they do not break. They wait like a path through mist, suggesting a way that is not a way, only a gentle insistence to keep moving, to keep listening. When the storm ended, the world as we know it began, divided, scarred, still bearing traces of that first union. The mountains that smoke, the glaciers that glow faintly from within, the hot springs that breathe warmth beneath snow. Each is a memory, a relic of that ancient peace between opposites. It is said that somewhere beneath the poles, where the two elements first touched, the remnants of that union remain. A cavern of crystal and flame, its walls breathing with shifting light. There, ice drips into molten gold and turns instantly to steam, as though the world itself is still trying to reconcile what it once was. The sound is like a heartbeat, deep and slow, echoing through the ages. Perhaps the story is not of the earth, but of us. Perhaps we, too, were born of opposites, of warmth and stillness, of passion and restraint, and the balance we seek is only the echo of what once was. When the wind sighs across frozen plains, listen closely. You may hear it, the faint crackle beneath the ice, the old rhythm of the world remembering itself, where flame and frost were one, and silence was the only word ever spoken. The spiral near the margin drew every eye. It was not a whirlpool, nor a storm, but something more patient, a gate sketched in a single unbroken breath. Some called it a harbor of the soul. Some called it a warning. There were travelers who traced the spiral onto their palms and set sail, following winds that felt older than weather. They wrote of nights where the stars seemed lower, marked by the moon as if in blessing, of mornings when the sea lay flat as glass and the sky carried no color at all. A few returned with quiet on their faces that never left them. Most did not return, and perhaps that, too, was a kind of answer. Beneath the silence of the vault, the map rests again, rolled and ribboned, the wax seal pressed with a sign that no one can read. It does not promise discovery. It does not threaten. It invites. It suggests that there are places one must approach with a slower breath, with the patience of tides and the humility of dust. Perhaps the map does not lead outward at all. Perhaps it points, gently, to the chamber behind the heart, to the room within the room, where memory keeps its oldest shore. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And some paths are drawn not to be taken, but to remind us that the world, and the world within, is larger than light will say. It is said that far below the southernmost waves, in a place where sunlight has never lived, lies a silence older than language. The ocean there does not move as other seas do. It rests, sealed beneath a ceiling of glassy ice, heavy with memory. Beneath that frozen shroud, something vast endures. Some call it a temple, others a wound in the earth. But the oldest whispers name it a cathedral, not built, but remembered, born from the dreams of a world that once knew how to pray. The story begins with a sound, a pulse caught by machines meant to measure distance. Yet what they heard was not an echo of stone, but of intention. The pattern was too perfect, the symmetry too deliberate. Columns, perhaps, rising in formation beneath the ice, their shadows repeating like verses in an unseen hymn. Scientists, poets, and believers all leaned toward that sound. Some with equations, some with quiet wonder. And in their listening, myth began to breathe again. It is said that the first divers descended into that black water with trembling hearts. Their lights pierced the cold gloom, revealing arches of stone glazed in frost, pillars etched with marks like frozen script. Each glyph shimmered faintly when touched by their beams, as though reflecting not light, but memory. The deeper they went, the more they felt watched, not by eyes, but by presence. The water grew warmer near the base of the structure, humming like a living thing. Some swore they heard a tone, a single note, low and endless, vibrating through the bones of the earth. In forgotten journals, there are sketches. A vast chamber with a vaulted ceiling of translucent stone, through which the dim moonlight filters in ghostly veins. Rows of columns stretch outward, each one slightly curved, forming the outline of a spiral when viewed from above. At its center, a dais, circular, empty, waiting. Around it, carvings of waves, of wings, of something that could be stars or eyes. The explorers could not say. Their voices softened when describing it, as if afraid of disturbing what still prayed there. Some believe this cathedral was never built by human hands. They say it was the earth's own act of devotion. Rock rising to remember heaven, water sealing it to preserve its song. Others whisper it is a remnant of a forgotten age, when knowledge and faith were one, when geometry was worship and silence was truth. Every theory ends in the same hush, that whatever sleeps beneath that ice remembers more than we dare to know. The sea above it remains still. No storms disturb its surface. No ship lingers long in that latitude. And yet, on certain nights, when the moon leans low and the air carries the scent of frozen salt, sailors claim to feel a faint vibration under their hulls. A hum that matches no current, no machine, no wind. They call it the breath of the deep. Perhaps it is only the sea remembering itself. Or perhaps it is the cathedral calling, not to be found, but simply to be heard. A pulse in the dark. A rhythm beneath sleep. Not proof, not evidence. Only an echo, the kind the heart mistakes for truth. It is said there was once a place where knowledge was not written, but exhaled. Hidden beneath the dunes of an unnamed desert, beneath layers of sun-bleached bones and forgotten empires, lies the library of breath and dust. No walls mark its entrance. No map recalls its form. The wind itself is its gatekeeper, shifting the sand to reveal, and then conceal, its sleeping corridors. They say the first scholars who found it did not read its wisdom, they listened. Inside, the air moved like the turning of pages, each draft carrying a whisper of voices long unremembered. Columns rose like reeds, hollow and trembling, their surfaces inscribed with spirals too fine to see except by candlelight. When the flame flickered, the spirals seemed to move, to breathe, as if language itself was alive in the stone. Whispers tell us that these chambers predate writing, that this was the world's first archive, where thought was not captured in ink, but woven into sound. Each sigh, each murmur, was trapped in the dust that clung to the walls. Those who walked through said they could hear fragments of memory, a prayer in a tongue older than light, the echo of footsteps that left no trace. The dust was sacred, they believed, for it remembered what men forgot. It is said that a scholar once tried to transcribe what he heard. He wrote for 7 nights without rest, and on the 8th, his ink turned to sand. When they found his notes, each word had dissolved into faint ripples, as though the paper itself had exhaled. His final line read, "The air remembers us more than stone ever will." Some believe the library still breathes, its dust rising and falling in rhythm with the world's oldest pulse, the breath of creation itself. Others claim the wind carries fragments of its voice across deserts and seas, shaping the songs of languages not yet born. But if you ever stand in a silent ruin and feel the air move against your cheek, soft, deliberate, almost human, listen. Do not speak, for it is said the library still whispers to those who remember how to be still. And when it exhales, it carries your name, turning it to dust so memory may sleep again. It is said that somewhere between the desert and the sea, there once stood a kingdom built from sunlight itself. Its towers rose like glass, bending the dawn into rivers of gold that ran through its streets. Its walls shimmered at dusk, not from fire, but from memory, as though the stones themselves recalled the warmth of the day. Travelers spoke of a city so luminous that it had no shadow. Every surface glowed softly, every window reflected the horizon. The people of that place lived in quiet harmony with the sky, measuring time not by clocks, but by the slow dance of color across their walls. They believed the sun was alive, that it breathed through their world, touching every heart with its silent flame. But one morning the light grew too strong. The air itself trembled, the towers quivered like reeds in wind, and the city began to dissolve. Not in fire or ruin, but in radiance. Streets melted into haze, gates blurred into the air, and within moments, the entire kingdom vanished, as if dawn had claimed it. Where it once stood, there remained only silence, and sand glinting faintly, as if remembering what it had seen. Some said it was punishment, that the people had built too close to heaven, daring to capture what could never belong to earth. Others whispered that the kingdom had not perished at all, but ascended, rising into light, too pure to be seen again by mortal eyes. Even now, sailors crossing that region at dusk sometimes glimpse a faint reflection on the horizon, an outline of towers, flickering like a mirage that breathes. The desert winds carry strange music there, faint and shimmering, like glass touched by fingers unseen. Those who follow it lose their way, wandering toward a brightness that recedes with every step. The air hums, soft and eternal, as though the world itself is holding its breath. It is said that when the light is at its gentlest, in the final moments before night, you can stand upon the dunes and see the faint trace of that lost realm, hanging between stars and sea. Its walls glow for a heartbeat, then fade, leaving the sky washed in gold. Perhaps the kingdom was never meant to last. Perhaps it was a memory the sun made, dreaming of its own reflection. And when the dream ended, it folded itself back into the light, so that only silence and wonder would remain. In a barren plain where the wind carries no scent and the soil has forgotten life, a circle of stones stands beneath the endless sky. Each monolith leans slightly inward, as though listening to the heavens. Their surfaces are weathered smooth, their crowns darkened by centuries of rain, yet carved faintly upon them are spirals, constellations, and the shapes of stars no longer known. It is said that when the world was young, the sky and the earth spoke to one another. The stars breathed their secrets into stone, and the stones, in turn, remembered. The builders of these monuments, whoever they were, arranged them not by whim, but by light. Every pillar aligns with the rise of a vanished star. Every groove mirrors the arc of a forgotten constellation. The pattern, if seen from above, forms a map not of this world, but of a time that has passed beyond memory. Travelers who come here say the air feels different, heavy, resonant, as though the plain itself hums with old sound. When night falls, and the first thin silver light spills across the horizon, the stones seem to wake. Their shadows move with a rhythm not entirely their own. Some swear they've seen faint lines of light run through the carvings, brief, silent, like a heartbeat in the dark. Whispers tell us the stones are not monuments, but instruments, the earth's way of remembering the heavens. That when the stars shift, their echoes fall here, threading through the stone, humming softly into the deep ground. It is said that the ancients came to listen, not to worship, that they placed their hands upon the rock and heard the slow voice of creation murmuring beneath. A legend speaks of one stone that fell. It cracked open upon the plain, and inside, the air shimmered, as if holding a fragment of night. They say the fragment sang when touched by light, though no one could bear to listen for long. Its tone was beautiful, yes, but sorrowful too, like the memory of a star that no longer burns. Now only the wind moves among them. It brushes the carvings, lifts the dust, and circles through the pillars like breath returning to the lungs of time. When the moon rises, silver and still, the stones cast long shadows that reach toward the horizon. Fingers stretch toward a home they once knew. And in that moment, when light and silence meet, the plain feels alive again, vast and aware. Perhaps the stones do remember. Perhaps they keep the songs of constellations long forgotten, waiting for ears that know how to hear. Or perhaps they dream, as we do, of the sky they once belonged to, and the stars that still whisper their names. It is said that deep within the ribs of a sleeping mountain, there lies a machine that breathes. Not a creation of metal and fire, but of stone, shadow, and sound. An ancient mechanism whose rhythm once kept the heart of the earth in balance. The entrance is hidden beneath the weight of centuries, a narrow fissure veiled by moss and mist. Those who enter describe a feeling that the mountain itself is listening, as though the rock is aware of every heartbeat that dares to echo within. The descent is long, silent, and steep. The air grows warm the deeper one goes, thick with the scent of minerals and forgotten rain. And then, at the end of that still passage, the chamber opens, vast and dim, its walls alive with geometry. Great arcs of black stone rise from the floor, meeting high above in a vaulted dome that glows faintly with veins of molten gold. At the chamber's center stands the machine, immense, unmoving, yet unmistakably alive. It is not made by hands as we know them. Each piece fits into the next like bone to sinew, carved with impossible precision. Its surface bears no rust, no decay, only a faint pulse of light moving beneath the rock, slow as breath in sleep. When one stands before it, a low hum fills the air, deep, steady, infinite. The sound does not merely echo. It vibrates through the body, through the marrow, through the quiet corners of the mind. It is the language of time itself, speaking not in words, but in rhythm. Whispers tell us that this machine once measured not hours or years, but eras, the turning of ages, the breath of civilizations. When its song was in harmony, the seasons flowed gently, the tides knew their limits, and memory held fast. But when the world grew loud, when greed and steel drowned the softer voices of the earth, the machine slowed, and finally, fell still. The hum faded into myth, the chamber sealed itself, and the mountain folded its arms around the silence. Some say it was not built by man at all, but by the planet in its youth, an organ of balance, a heart that could dream. Others believe it was the work of the first architects, those who shaped the world when knowledge and reverence were one. Whoever they were, they left no scripture, only motion and stone. a message in rhythm, waiting for those who remember how to listen. Even now, on quiet nights when thunder sleeps and the air feels charged with memory, people who live near the mountain claim to hear it. A faint vibration, deep beneath the ground. Slow, patient, unbroken. They say it rises through the roots of trees, hums beneath the rivers, stirs in the stones of ancient temples. Perhaps the machine still breathes, unseen, turning in silence as the world forgets its name. Perhaps it was never meant to stop, only to rest. And when it wakes again, it will not speak in words or flame, but in the quiet rhythm of the earth, reminding us that creation itself was once alive, and still is, beneath the mountain's steady heart. It is said that far below the ancient ice of the southern world, deeper than sunlight, deeper than memory, lies a mirror not made by human hands. For ages it slept unseen, sealed beneath layers of frost so pure they turned light into silence. When explorers sent their instruments through that frozen veil, they caught something strange, a reflection that moved before the light reached it, as if the ice itself were remembering the sky. The first to see it described a surface too smooth for nature, a plane of frozen glass that shimmered faintly with inner color. It did not reflect the divers above, nor the beams of their lamps. It reflected something else. Shapes of mountains that no longer stood, stars that had shifted from their places, faces that belonged to no one alive. The scientists took readings, but their numbers spoke in riddles. The mirror seemed older than the ice that encased it, older perhaps than the sea itself. Whispers tell us that it was not always beneath the water. Once, it stood beneath the open sky, a sacred slab polished by time, used by the ancients to speak with the heavens. They believed the mirror showed not what is, but what was meant to be. That to gaze into it was to see the memory of creation, a perfect design the world could never quite fulfill. When the age of fire came, when the poles shifted and the waters rose, the mirror sank into the sea and the sea froze over it, preserving its dream. Divers who approached it said their minds filled with visions. Not images but feelings, impressions of light and distance, of stars seen from within rather than without. Some reported seeing themselves, not as they were, but as shadows of other lives, flickering like candlelight in ancient halls. They spoke of hearing a low tone, a resonance without sound, that vibrated through their hearts as if the ocean were speaking in breath. When they surfaced, their eyes carried a faraway look, the gaze of those who had seen something too vast to name. There are theories, of course, that it is volcanic glass from a meteorite, that it is the frozen remnant of a collapsed cavern, that it is an illusion, a trick of light and longing. Yet none explain the warmth that radiates from it, or the way the ice melts slightly when the moon passes overhead, as though the mirror is answering to a celestial call. It is said that on rare nights, when the aurora burns green above the pole and the air trembles with unseen movement, the ice becomes translucent, and the mirror below shines faintly, like a slow pulse beneath the earth's skin. Those who have seen it say it looks alive. Perhaps it is not a mirror at all, but a memory, a frozen thought, left by hands we no longer remember. Perhaps it does not reflect our world, but the one that came before it, or the one that waits to come again. And perhaps, if one were to look closely enough, through the layers of ice and silence, they would not see stars or faces, but the faint, shimmering outline of themselves, not as they are, but as they were meant to be. It is said that beneath the oldest ice of the world, where the ocean floor drops into unmeasured dark, shapes sleep that are too vast to be called human, too deliberate to be called stone. They lie in perfect alignment, shoulder to shoulder, as though arranged by an unseen hand. Sonar once caught their outlines, enormous, symmetrical, unmistakably formed. When the sound waves returned, they carried not static, but a faint vibration, like the echo of a distant heartbeat. The first explorers to study the recordings heard something that words could not explain. One described it as a song too slow to end. Another, more quietly, said it felt like the earth was dreaming beneath them. The ocean above those coordinates remains unnaturally calm. Storms circle around it, currents hesitate. Even the whales, whose songs travel for miles, fall silent when they pass above that sleeping field. Ancient legends speak of beings who walked before dawn, giants who shaped rivers with their steps and raised mountains with their hands. They were not cruel, only weary, and when the earth cooled and men began to build, the giants lay down to rest, promising to wake only when the world forgot its rhythm. Some say the ice grew around them as protection, drawn by the stillness of their slumber. Others believe they chose the cold, wrapping themselves in silence until time could begin again. Whispers tell us that sometimes, on nights when the moon hangs low and the sea becomes glass, faint tremors ripple through the ocean floor. Instruments record them as harmless vibrations, but those who listen closely hear something deeper. A pulse, slow and patient, as though a great heart turns once every century. Divers who have ventured too near return with dreams of colossal faces seen through mist, eyes closed, lips parted as if mid-breath. They speak of standing upon the ocean bed and feeling it move beneath their feet, soft as the turning of sleep. Some say these are not giants but monuments, statues left by an age that mastered balance and forgot pride. But even carved stone does not hum. Even carved stone does not make the tides tremble when it sighs. The sea above their resting place gleams faintly, even in darkness, as though lit from below by the ghost of dawn. Perhaps they are waiting for the world to grow quiet again. Perhaps they will rise only when the earth remembers the voice it once had, before engines, before noise, before man filled the air with forgetting. Until then, they remain where light cannot touch them, beneath the white silence of time. The ice shifts above, the world grows loud, and still they sleep, vast, patient, eternal. And sometimes, when the wind falls still and the night deepens into its truest quiet, one might feel it, that almost imperceptible hum, as though the planet itself is breathing in its sleep. It is said that at the farthest edge of the world, beyond the reach of compass or star, there lies a fissure in the ice that leads not downward, but inward. A dark passage where the wind forgets its name and sound itself is swallowed whole. Those who have found it call it a gate, though it opens onto nothing the human eye can see. The explorers who approached it wrote that their lanterns dimmed as though shy of its presence, and that their voices, when spoken into the chasm, did not return.